Back to the Auditor General's report now, and this report, of course, was on national and provincial government departments, and it's found that 231 of those audited lost 2.3 billion rand in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. This was in 2019, the 2020 financial year. The Auditor General, Tsakani Maluleke, says there should be urgency in dealing with material irregularities to prevent further wastage, recover money, and effect consequences for wrongdoing. The Auditor General report further showed improved audit outcomes in the Eastern Cape, the Free State, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. The audits were conducted on national and provincial departments, SOE'S, TVET colleges and public entities on a total budget of 1.7 trillion rand. The Auditor General says procurement remains a challenge in government. Sandile Swana is a Municipal Finance lecturer under the Risk and Governance program at Wits School of Governance, and he finally joins us. It's good to see you. Thanks so much, Sandile. Or not. Sandile, can you hear us? No, doesn't look like Sandile's there. We had a picture just a couple of seconds ago, so I'm hoping that it'll all come back now. Let me try one last time. Sandile, are you able to hear us? Good morning to you. No, doesn't look like it. All right, so that's an unfortunate thing, because we were really hoping to get that interview to you. So when you look at a breakdown of a couple of the provinces that are out there, which is quite good, you've definitely got the Limpopo, which has improved, Northwest, the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, Western Cape, Eastern Cape. All of those are coming through with much better results. However, Gauteng is the one to look out for, and I must say it is a concern when you live here in Gauteng and you look at some of the conditions of things in the municipality. It's not looking good at all, I must say. But let me try again. Sandile, are you there? Are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Leanne.
All right, good. Sandile, I'm going to get straight into it because we don't have too much time with you now. I mean, the Auditor General, basically looking at the national and provincial audits, the improvements, a couple more clean audits. However, she did say, don't read too much into that and don't be too excited, because it's still not great shakes. Talk to us about this.
Yes, they are not really yet in good shape. The Auditor General has got reason to celebrate the fact that at least they can do audits now without being chased away from the client side or being shorted. When we talk at the figures for irregular expenditure, in other words, expenditures that are not in compliance with the law, those figures cumulatively have increased. At the same time, even the reduced figure is also because other figures have been left out. Some of the organizations said, yes, we've got irregular expenditure, we don't know how much it is. Others submitted late. And organizations such as Eskom and Transnet have not been added to the figure. So the figure might actually be higher if all the organizations that are supposed to make up that category of expenditure were included. So it's not yet time to celebrate. At the same time, one important factor is that most of the organizations that are failing to meet audit standards are the ones where they don't have a long-serving CEO or DG, and the ones where there is no long-serving CFO. So there has been a systematic removal of disadvantages to CEOs and CFOs in these organizations over time.
Yeah. Sandile, improvements on clean audits and 57% basically overall. The Auditor General said it's harder to keep a clean audit than to earn it. But for the longest time in South Africa, even earning it was something difficult. You're a person who actually consults to support municipalities. Is it a lack of support, or is it just a lack of understanding? What do you think needs to be done with regard to the situation, or is it just purely a matter of corruption?
At the end of the day, it's a matter of corruption, but we have to define what type of corruption we're talking about. When you deliberately employ the incorrect CEO or municipal manager or DG for that particular department or HOD, and the incorrect CFO who is going to be manipulated either by politicians or business people to collapse the governance systems in the institution. That is the biggest problem here. But let us quickly deal with how these people fail to get a clean audit. The record keeping in these organizations, government organizations, is very poor. Basic accounting is not being done. So even when they say they are preparing a report to Treasury or a report to any overseeing institution during the year, they submit incorrect reports and therefore wrong decisions are being made. Also, they do not actually correct what they've been told over many years, 8 years at least now, they've been told to correct by the Auditor General. At the same time, they do not know how to measure their own performance. If you say you are going to build roads, you need an indicator that tells you that I'm going to build so many kilometers, and it needs to be able to be measurable. Yeah. So they fail to measure their own performance service delivery. And lastly, they fail to comply with the laws that govern how they should run their institutions. Those are the three issues.
I'm going to just pause you for literally 10 seconds. I have to say goodbye to our SABC2 viewers. We're going to continue this interview as well as another hour coming your way on SABC News. Tune into Channel 404. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, Sandile Swana, let's continue that interview. Apologies for interrupting. We just had to wrap up on SABC2, but we are still here. Please pick up with what you were saying. It just doesn't seem that the knowledge systems are in place.
So, yeah, basically, a person who has basic training in management and in accounting, as is the case in many companies and organizations here in South Africa, can do the work. This work of getting a clean audit is not big because it has got three elements. One, keep proper records of your finances and be able to support every transaction you've done with receipts, with contracts and everything else. Two, know how to measure your performance. If you say we're going to deliver this service, how are you going to measure it? Which is where some of them are failing, a lot of them are failing. Three, do everything according to what the law actually says. Because everything you do in government has got a law that governs how it must be done. So those are the three things which are actually the norm in management. That is what students are taught to do, and that's what other companies are doing out there.
Last year, Maluleke said responsiveness to corrective action recommended and diligence in recovering monies led the UIF to recover about 3.4 billion rand back to its coffers. But do you know what was the problem at the UIF in the first place?
No, not at the UIF. No, I didn't study that case specifically.
So that was just, so that one we're not too sure of. We'll try and ask a few more questions around that one. But when we talk to inadequate controls, poor discipline, weak systems, inappropriate payments, these are some of the phrases that are used in these reports over and over and over again. Sometimes one actually feels these phrases sound sophisticated, making light of the morass facing South Africa, instead of actually calling it what it is.
Yes, I think that a case that we can use that the public is also very aware of was the case of the procurement of the COVID-19 PPEs and the procurement around COVID-19. Now, when you listen to the Auditor General again, even last year and this year, what you discover is that prior to anything happening, they had been giving advice continuously for the previous 7 years on how these things can be prevented. After they did their investigation into the PPE procurement, they then repeated the same thing, that these things that have occurred in this PPP procurement are the same things we've been telling you for the past 7 years to start preventing, and here are the remedies. And those remedies have not been enforced. the leadership, which is the political leadership and the administrative leadership, over many years has been ignoring to actually enforce the remedies of a Auditor General. So the funds that are in the state are unsecured because the controls, just basic internal controls, are not enforced. Only 8% of the organizations in the public sector have got general IT controls securing their own computers. So the securing of public resources is not there. And then what that does is that it allows thieves to actually start removing that money. And those thieves are never arrested. The money is hardly ever recovered over the years. It's only starting now to be recovered.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday, she also spoke of a greater collaboration that is needed. This is between the law enforcement agencies and accounting officers. I mean, if that does happen, what would it actually look like if that became the norm?
Yes. What actually, let's be clear. Let's say, for instance, somebody is known, and we all have been in the workplace for some time. We know that so-and-so is suspected of stealing money, and there's going to be an internal disciplinary action. So every disciplinary action where there's suspicion of criminal activity, then the CEO then reports that person to the police, takes all the evidence that we have for the case, hands it over to the police. So that happens everywhere, which is presently not happening. Then if that were the case and people knew for sure that if I am caught, I will not just get a disciplinary, which I might not even attend, I'll just resign and go and find another job elsewhere or be redeployed somewhere. If that were to happen, like in other countries, it has already been happening, it will reduce the appetite for people to be wantonly stealing state funds. That is basically what will happen.
Yesterday was quite interesting when the Auditor General made an example of a grader that was left at a municipal official's house overnight with keys on the ignition, and of course the grader was stolen and taken through the borders. How is something like this possible? I mean, what should happen to such a case and to such an employee?
Yes, as I was saying earlier on, those are internal controls. In other words, first of all, when you are going to take a grader, you must sign off, then sign it out. We know that it is with you, and we are given conditions under which you are going to keep it, and so on and so forth. So basically, what we do not know, because in South Africa there is no culture of leaving keys in any vehicle. We don't have that culture. No. You see that only in the movies. We don't do that here. So first of all, the police will probably want to focus, any forensic auditor in the police will have to focus on this person, whether he is not complicit in this. But to the point of the Auditor General, the
Sandile, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sorry that we have to cut the short because I know that there's so much more to get through. But unfortunately, we've already run into news time, just stealing a bit of time. But I think you've given us a bit of food for thought. Sandile Swana is a municipal finance and a part-time lecturer under the Risk and Governance program at Wits School of Governance, commenting on the 2020 government entities audit outcomes. Right, the time now is, it's already 7 minutes past 8. Let's just update you on some of the top stories this morning.